We all want to be loved. It doesn't matter how independent you are, how successful you've become, or how much you tell yourself that you're fine. On your own, at the end of the day, deep down, we crave something real. Not just attention, not just chemistry, not just someone to text at night. We crave connection, intimacy, something that feels safe, something that feels true. But let me ask you a painful question, and I want you to sit with it honestly. Have you been trying to earn love? Think about that for a second. Have you been bending over backwards, shrinking yourself, overextending your time, energy, or emotions? All in hopes that maybe, just maybe, someone will finally love you back the way you want? If your answer is yes, you're not alone. In fact, I'd argue that most people, especially the kind-hearted, empathetic, emotionally generous ones, fall into this trap more than they realize. We don't even call it earning love. We disguise it as things like, I just need to be more understanding. Maybe if I'm more patient, they'll come around. If I give a little more, maybe they'll finally see my worth. If I stay calm, don't ask for too much, and don't rock the boat, they'll stay. We wear our love like armor. Like currency, like something that needs to be offered up in order to be deserved back. And it never works. Here's why: because love was never meant to be earned. It was always meant to be shared. Somewhere along the line, many of us were taught either directly or by experience that love is transactional, that it comes when we're good enough, pretty enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, low maintenance enough. That we have to meet all these unspoken criteria just to be considered lovable. Maybe you were raised in a family where love came with conditions. Maybe your worth was tied to your achievements. Maybe your emotions were labeled as too much, or your needs as inconvenient. So you learn to dial yourself down, to perform, to become easy to love. But here's the thing: love that requires a performance isn't love. It's approval, and approval and love are not the same. Approval says, I'll accept you as long as you're doing the right thing. Love says, I see you, and I choose you, even when you're messy, scared, or figuring it out. There's a massive difference between earning affection and experiencing mutual love. One depletes you, the other builds you. One is rooted in fear, the other in freedom. Let's go deeper. When you believe you need to earn love, you operate from a place of scarcity. You're constantly trying to prove that you're worthy. You become hyper, aware of your partner's moods, reactions, silences. You overanalyze every text, every comment, every withdrawal of attention. And what do you do when they pull away? You try harder. You double down. You suppress your needs just to keep the peace. You give and give, hoping it'll finally be enough to unlock the love you crave. But real love doesn't make you fight to be seen. It doesn't make you feel like you're too much for wanting affection or too needy for desiring consistency. Love, in its truest form, is something that's offered, not extracted. It's not a reward, it's not a favor, it's a choice, a willingness, a shared experience. And you know what's wild? We often confuse being loved with being chosen by the person we've been chasing. We think, if I can finally get this person, the one I've been trying so hard to impress, to love me back, then I'll know I'm worthy. But that's not love. That's validation addiction. And no matter how many times you win someone's attention, if it's not grounded in mutual care and respect, it will always leave you feeling empty. Now let's talk about the flip side, what it means to share love. To share love is to bring your full self to the table. It means showing up honestly, not perfectly. It means offering affection, vulnerability, and connection, not because you're trying to be chosen, but because you are choosing to share what's real. Shared love is reciprocal. It's rooted in respect. It thrives when two people are both emotionally available, willing to give, to receive, and to grow together. It doesn't require you to overfunction while the other underfunctions. It doesn't make you chase scraps of attention in exchange for your soul. It doesn't punish you for having needs. In fact, it welcomes your needs as part of the intimacy. And here's something no one tells you in those how to get the guy/girl books. You don't need to do more to be loved. You need to be more of yourself, because the right people, the ones who are capable of real love, don't need to be impressed. They need to be connected to. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for presence. So if you've ever been in a relationship where you felt like your love was a one-way street, where every part of you had to be filtered or managed just to keep someone around, hear this. That wasn't your fault. But it's now your responsibility to unlearn that pattern, because the truth is, love that has to be chased isn't worth catching. The love that changes your life isn't the one you work tirelessly to earn. It's the one that's offered back freely in kind by someone who sees you clearly and chooses you daily, not because of what you do, not because of how perfectly you love them, but because of who you are and who they become when they're with you. That's what shared love looks like. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not the fantasy, not the fairy tale, but the real thing. So if you've been stuck in a cycle of proving yourself to people who never deserved your effort, this is your moment to let that story go. Because from here on out, we're not chasing love, we're choosing it. And more importantly, we're choosing to share it. Together. Have you ever found yourself trying just a little too hard in a relationship? Not because you're manipulative, not because you're calculating, but because deep down you were terrified that if you stopped giving so much, stopped trying so hard, or stopped being the best version of yourself at all times, the other person would stop loving you. Let's pause here, because this pattern is so subtle that many people live it their entire lives and never call it what it is. A performance, and love, real love, is not a performance. Let me say that again, louder this time. Love is not a performance. Stop auditioning. The hidden audition stage most people don't even realize they're auditioning. It's not like we walk into a date, job interview style with a rehearsed monologue and headshots. The performance is more subtle. It looks like laughing at jokes that don't land just to seem agreeable, holding back your opinions because you don't want to be too intense, ignoring red flags because you don't want to be too picky, saying yes when you mean no because you fear rejection, over-apologizing, over-giving, over-functioning just to keep someone interested. These are all acts, not conscious lies, but micro adjustments to your authentic self, so small and habitual that you no longer notice them. They accumulate like layers of makeup, each swipe meant to make you more attractive, but ultimately creating distance between who you are and who you present yourself to be. And here's the tragedy: the more you perform, the less you're truly seen. And when someone doesn't love the real you, only the curated version, it leaves you feeling alone. Even in a relationship, especially in a relationship, that loneliness isn't from lack of company, it's from lack of connection. Where this performance begins, this need to earn. Love through performance usually doesn't start in adulthood. It begins in childhood, in homes, schools, and communities where love was not unconditional. Maybe your caregivers only praised you when you succeeded. Maybe they withheld affection when you made mistakes. Maybe you were taught that you had to be easy, quiet, polite, or perfect to be accepted. So you learned to be whoever people needed you to be, and that coping mechanism worked back then. It helped you survive, stay safe, feel wanted. But what helped you survive as a child can sabotage you in love as an adult. Performance love vs. authentic love. Let's define the difference. Performance love says, if I'm impressive enough, I'll be chosen. I can't show them my flaws or they'll leave. I have to prove I'm worthy of staying. Authentic love says, I don't need to impress someone into loving me. I want to be seen fully, even in my messiness. Love is not something I win, it's something I share. Performance love is exhausting. It burns you out. You spend more time managing perceptions than experiencing connection. Authentic love, on the other hand, is liberating. When you drop the performance, you allow yourself to be loved as you are, not for your highlight reel, not for your sacrifices, but for your soul. Why we keep performing even when we know it's toxic. Many of us keep performing in relationships. Why? Because we've mistaken being chosen for being loved. We think, if I can just get this person to pick me over their ex, over their options, over their doubts, then I'll feel worthy. But being chosen doesn't mean you're loved. You can be chosen for how you look, for what you give, for what you represent. But if someone hasn't chosen your truth, your quirks, your wounds, your boundaries, your dreams, then they haven't really chosen you. And the most dangerous thing about this kind of performance, it often works. You get the relationship, you get the attention, you get the illusion of love, but deep inside you know it's not real. You know it because you're afraid that if you ever stop being on, if you ever show weakness, if you ever say no, it'll all disappear. That's not love, that's fear in costume. The cost of performing for love, let's be brutally honest. When you perform for love, you pay with parts of yourself. You silence your voice to keep the peace. You downplay your needs to avoid seeming needy. You settle for crumbs, calling it a feast. You morph yourself into someone palatable and lose touch with who you really are. Over time, resentment builds, not just toward the other person, but toward yourself. You start to wonder, why do I always end up feeling unseen, unheard, unloved? And here's the kicker, you can't blame others for not loving the real you. If you've never let them meet the real you, you can't receive authentic love through a mask. Breaking the habit, from audition to authenticity, so how do you stop performing? It's not about swinging to the opposite extreme and becoming careless or overly guarded. It's about unlearning the pattern of pleasing and relearning the power of presence. Here's how. 1. Become aware of your scripts. Start noticing when you're slipping into performance mode. Ask yourself, am I saying this because it's true or because it's what they want to hear? Am I agreeing to this because I want to or because I'm afraid they'll leave? Am I editing myself in this moment? Awareness is the first crack in the armor. 2. Reconnect with your needs. Performers often lose touch with their own needs. They become so attuned to other people's desires that they forget their own. Ask yourself, what do I actually want in this relationship? What makes me feel safe, seen, supported? What are my non-negotiables? Write them down, own them, stop apologizing for having standards. 3. Practice small acts of authenticity. Start small. Say no to something that doesn't feel good. Speak a truth you'd normally sugarcoat. Let someone see you without the perfect filter. You don't have to reveal everything at once, but every act of authenticity is a step toward freedom. 4. Watch how people respond. Here's the beautiful part. When you start being real, you start filtering your relationships. Some people won't like it. They'll pull away when you stop people pleasing. Let them. Those people were never invested in you, just in the version of you that served their comfort. But the right people, they'll lean in, they'll appreciate your honesty, they'll match your energy, they'll love you not despite your imperfections, but because of them. 5. Remind yourself, love is mutual, not conditional. Love that requires a constant performance isn't love. It's approval addiction, disguised as connection. Real love is mutual. You don't have to perform for it. You don't have to hustle for it. You don't have to earn it. You just have to share it from a place of wholeness. The courage to be real, it takes courage to drop the act. It takes courage to show up as you are and risk not being liked. But it's better to be disliked for who you are than adored for who you're not. Because at least then, the love you receive will be real. It will have roots. It will last. Here's the truth you may have forgotten. You are lovable exactly as you are. Not once you become more confident. Not once you heal every wound. Not once you fix your flaws now, right now. And when you stop performing, you give others permission to do the same. You create a space for real love, messy, raw, vulnerable, but deeply meaningful. Conclusion, from stage to sanctuary. So let's end with this image. Imagine stepping off the stage. No lights, no applause, no script. Just you, raw, real, honest. And imagine someone walking toward you, not to be impressed, but to be with you. That's love, not earned, not won, but shared, and that's what you deserve, always. Let's get honest about something most people don't want to admit. You can't truly love someone and be loved in return if you don't respect yourself first. Not just love yourself, respect yourself. Those two aren't the same, because love without respect is often unconditional in a way that becomes self-destructive. We say, "But I love them," while tolerating behavior that chips away at our worth. We give chance after chance. We rationalize the red flags. We stay not because we're happy, but because we don't believe we deserve more. But here's a truth that will change the way you experience love forever. If you don't respect yourself, your love will always feel lopsided. Because shared love, mutual, meaningful, and fulfilling, doesn't come from pouring yourself into someone else. It comes from standing firmly in who you are and sharing love from a place of wholeness, not neediness. Let's dive deeper. The difference between giving and overgiving. So many people confuse love with self-sacrifice. They believe that the more they give their time, energy, forgiveness, emotional labor, the more worthy they are of being loved in return. They think love is proven through endurance. If I can love them at their worst, they'll finally see how good I am. But that's not love, that's martyrdom. And here's the painful truth. People rarely respect the love you give if you don't respect yourself while giving it. There is a world of difference between loving someone while honoring your boundaries and loving someone instead of having boundaries. When you give too much without limits, when you compromise your values to keep someone around, when you silence your voice to avoid conflict, you're not creating closeness, you're creating imbalance, and imbalance breeds resentment, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. Self-respect is the foundation of healthy love. Let's define it clearly. Self-respect is knowing your worth not just in words, but in action. It's having a standard and actually upholding it. It's walking away from anything that asks you to betray yourself even if you love them. It's believing that your feelings, needs, and boundaries are equally important as the other person's. That doesn't mean you're selfish, it means you're emotionally mature, because let's be honest, love without self-respect isn't love, it's dependency dressed up as devotion. When you don't respect yourself, you chase people who validate your insecurities. You attach your worth to their attention. You accept poor treatment just to avoid being alone. You settle and call it loyalty, but respect shifts everything. When you have self-respect, you no longer tolerate inconsistent communication, passive-aggressive behavior, emotional unavailability, or conditional affection. You stop explaining your standards. You stop begging people to meet your needs. You stop proving your value and start protecting it. Why we struggle to choose self-respect in love. The idea of choosing self-respect sounds easy, but for many it's terrifying. Why? Because we've been conditioned to believe that choosing ourselves will lead to abandonment. We're taught that setting boundaries is selfish, that having standards makes us difficult, that asking for more makes us too much. We fear that if we honor ourselves, we'll lose love. But let's reframe that fear. You won't lose love. You'll lose access to people who only benefited from your lack of self-respect, and that is not a loss, that's a blessing. The people who disappear when you stop over-functioning were never invested in loving you, only in what you could do for them. Self-respect is the filter that removes the wrong people and makes space for the right ones. The relationship between self, worth, and standards. Let's talk about standards, because they are the expression of your self-respect in action. When you respect yourself, your standards become non-negotiable, not in a rigid or elitist way, but in a calm, clear, loving way. You don't lower them to attract more people, you keep them high to protect your peace. Your standard might sound like, I don't chase people who don't choose me. I don't beg for love, time, or respect. I don't stay in relationships that diminish my joy or shrink my spirit. I don't explain basic decency to grown adults. And the moment you start living by those standards, two things happen. You start feeling lighter, more aligned, and proud of yourself. The people around you either rise to meet you or quietly remove themselves. Either way, you win. Boundaries, the real love language. If love is the language of connection, then boundaries are the grammar that makes it intelligible. Self-respect manifests through healthy boundaries, not walls that shut people out, but fences that protect your emotional safety. Boundaries don't mean you love someone less. They mean you love yourself enough not to abandon yourself for someone else. Some examples: I care about you, but I won't engage in disrespectful conversations. I love spending time with you, but I also need time for myself. I want to support you, but I won't be your emotional punching bag. I'm open to compromise, but not at the cost of my values. People who truly love you will respect your boundaries, not punish you for having them. If someone withdraws their love the moment you set a boundary, then it wasn't love, it was control, and your job is not to make yourself easier to love. Your job is to keep loving yourself even when that means walking away. Self-respect doesn't mean you don't have emotions. Let's make one thing clear. Having self-respect doesn't mean you don't feel pain, grief, or longing. It doesn't mean you're emotionally detached or never miss the person who hurt you. It means that even in the midst of your emotion, you don't abandon yourself. You can cry and still walk away. You can feel heartbroken and still uphold your boundary. You can miss them and still know you deserve more. Self-respect doesn't cancel out love. It just insists that love be healthy. It demands that the love you give also nourishes you. How to build self-respect in practice. Self-respect isn't a switch. It's a skill, and like any skill, it's built through consistent practice. Here are 5 powerful ways to strengthen your self-respect in love. 1. Get clear on your core values, what truly matters to you in a relationship. Honesty, emotional availability, loyalty, communication. Write them down. These are your non-negotiables. Once you're clear on them, you stop accepting relationships that conflict with them, no matter how attractive the other person is. 2. Stop arguing with people about your worth. Your worth is not a group project. It's not up for debate. You don't need to convince someone to treat you well. If they can't see your value, that's their limitation, not a reflection of your inadequacy. You are not for everyone, and that's a gift, not a flaw. 3. Say what you mean without apologizing. Speak your truth clearly and kindly, but without shrinking. I'm not okay with that. That hurt my feelings. I need more consistency. I don't feel safe when you raise your voice. You don't need to scream, blame, or beg. Calm clarity is powerful. It separates the emotionally mature from the manipulative. 4. Give yourself what you've been begging others for. Instead of waiting for someone else to see you, love you, or prioritize you, start doing it for yourself. Buy yourself flowers, rest when you need to, take up space, say no, make yourself proud. The more you respect yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for anyone who doesn't. 5. Let people walk away. This is the hardest one, but it's where your self-respect becomes unshakable. Let them leave if they can't meet you with honesty, effort, and care. Don't chase, don't plead, don't lower your standards. Let them go, not because you're unloving, but because you're no longer willing to be unloved in the process of being loved. Real love meets you where you are. Here's the good news. When you start showing up with self-respect, you stop attracting relationships based on fear and fantasy. You start attracting people who get it, who don't want a version of you they can control or fix, but the real you they can grow with. You attract partners who match your energy, communicate openly, respect your boundaries, celebrate your individuality, choose you, not out of convenience, but from let's pause and take a breath, because this one goes deep. You may not realize it, but there's a belief you've been carrying quietly, sometimes unconsciously, that's shaped every relationship, every heartbreak, every moment you've felt not quite seen. It sounds like this: if I could just fix this about myself, maybe they'd love me. If I were more confident, more successful, more beautiful, less complicated, maybe I'd finally be enough. Sound familiar? Let me tell you the truth you may not have heard enough in your life, or maybe never heard at all. You are already enough to be loved. Right now, not when you lose 20 pounds, not when you earn that promotion, not when you stop overthinking, heal your trauma, become more confident, more chill, more anything now, as you are, with all the cracks, mess, softness, fears, desires, awkward moments, and magic. Because love is not a reward for perfection. It's not the prize at the end of a personal growth journey. It's not something you become worthy of once you hit some invisible benchmark. Love is your birthright. The once I'm better, then I'll be loved myth. We live in a world obsessed with self-improvement, and don't get me wrong, growth is beautiful, healing is necessary, evolving is powerful. But when growth is driven by shame, by the belief that who you are right now is not enough, then what you're chasing isn't self-love, it's self-rejection. You're telling yourself, love will come after I fix myself, and guess what? That belief never actually leads to peace, because the finish line keeps moving. You lose the weight, and then worry your personality isn't exciting enough. You build the career, and then fear people only want you for your status. You become more emotionally regulated, and then feel boring. This is the cruel treadmill of unworthiness. You run and run and run, and never arrive, because the issue was never what you needed to become. The issue was believing that you weren't already enough. The damage of conditional self-worth, when your sense of worth is conditional based on what you achieve, how you look, how lovable you seem. You start to build relationships on shaky ground. You become hyper-vigilant, always checking, do they still like me? Did I say too much? Should I pull back so I don't scare them off? You walk on eggshells, not because they told you to, but because you don't feel safe being fully seen. Why? Because some part of you still believes, if they see the real me, they'll leave. So you hide, you filter, you perform, but here's the catch. When you're hiding, you never give someone the chance to love you, only the version of you you're projecting. And when they do love that version, it feels hollow, because deep down you know that love isn't landing on the real you. It's a lonely kind of love, and you deserve better. The illusion of deserving love, we hear it all the time. You have to deserve love. It sounds motivating on the surface, but it's dangerous. Love is not a merit badge. It's not a gold star you earn for good behavior. It's not a loan with emotional interest rates. Real love is not about deserving. It's about receiving. If love were truly about deserving, then who decides what's enough? Who's the judge of your worth? What scale are you being measured against? Love that's based on merit becomes transactional and eventually conditional. I stayed calm during a fight. I deserve love. I supported them through everything. I deserve loyalty. I don't ask for much. I deserve to be appreciated. But love doesn't always flow based on what you do. It flows based on alignment, on mutual openness, on emotional availability, and most of all on self-acceptance. Because the more you accept yourself, the more love you are able to receive. How you block love when you don't feel enough. Let's talk about how feeling unworthy subtly sabotages even the best of relationships. When you don't believe you're enough, you start showing up from fear. You overgive, hoping it'll convince someone to stay. You underexpress, afraid that your feelings will be too much. You tolerate inconsistency, thinking it's the best you can get. You question compliments, trust, love because it feels foreign. In essence, you start pushing love away. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but you reject it because you don't believe it belongs to you, and this is why self-worth is not just nice to have, it's the foundation for healthy, secure love. If you don't feel worthy, even real love will make you anxious. You'll be waiting for it to be taken away. You'll question why they're with you. You'll look for flaws in yourself or in them because it feels too good to be true. And soon, the very love you longed for begins to crumble under the weight of your insecurity. What happens when you know you're enough now? Let's flip the script. When you do believe you are enough right now, without changing a thing, everything shifts. You stop chasing, you stop performing, you stop overanalyzing every interaction. Instead, you receive. You receive love, compliments, care without suspicion or apology. You speak your truth without fearing it will drive someone away. You hold space for others, but not at the cost of yourself. You attract partners who value you because you value you. And when someone isn't capable of loving you the way you need, you walk away not with bitterness, but with grace. Not because you're too good, but because you finally believe you deserve better. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. Let me tell you something radical. Your flaws don't make you unlovable, they make you human. Your anxiety doesn't make you a burden. Your past doesn't disqualify you from a future. Your sensitivity is not a weakness. Your intensity is not too much. Your desire for deep connection is not needy, it's brave. Love isn't about finding someone who sees a perfect you. It's about finding someone who sees the whole you and still chooses you. But that can't happen until you start choosing you first. How to reclaim your worthiness, believing you're enough, is not a one-time revelation. It's a practice. Here's how to start living it. 1. Question the story. Ask yourself, who told me I wasn't enough? Was it a parent, an ex, a bully, society? Was it someone who projected their insecurity onto you? Now ask, is that story true or just familiar? Because often the belief I'm not enough is inherited, not born, and what was planted by others can be uprooted by you. 2. Speak to yourself differently. You can't hate yourself into worthiness. You can't shame yourself into self-love. Start talking to yourself like you would to someone you deeply care about. Instead of, you always mess up, say, you're learning. Instead of, you're so difficult to love, say, you're worthy of deep love. Instead of, you're too much. Say, you feel deeply and that's beautiful. Your internal voice becomes the soundtrack of yourself. Worth, make it kind, make it safe. 3. Receive without deflecting. The next time someone compliments you, don't downplay it. Don't say, oh, it's nothing, or you're just being nice. Just say, thank you, let it in. Receiving love, even in small moments, retrains your nervous system to feel safe with it, because love isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's someone remembering your favorite snack. Sometimes it's being asked how your day was. Let that count. 4. Stop waiting to be ready. Stop waiting to be more healed, more confident, more stable before allowing yourself to be loved. Let love meet you where you are. It doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. The most beautiful relationships don't start when people are finished products. They start when people are honest and willing to grow together. Final thought, you are the love you've been waiting for. We spend so much of life waiting to be chosen, to be validated, to finally feel like we matter. But here's the twist, you don't need to be chosen. You need to choose yourself. You don't need to be enough for someone else. You already are enough for you, because when you truly believe you're enough, not later, not when, but now, you stop chasing people who only reflect your doubts. You start aligning with people who reflect your truth, and that truth is simple, profound, and unshakable. You are already enough to be loved, not someday, right now. So if you've been stuck in a pattern of trying to earn someone's affection, I want to say this gently, but clearly, stop. You don't have to earn what should be given freely. Walk away from love that feels like a test. Run toward love that feels like a safe place, because at the end of the day, when love is real, it doesn't feel like hard work. It feels like home, and home is where you're accepted, not because you're perfect, but because you're you. Thank you.